Let's get some reaction from LNP member and former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Andrew Wallace, a regular on the program. Do you like what you're seeing from New Zealand in terms of diversifying on trade? Do we need to do that more in the face of the tariffs from the Trump administration?
Well, I think diversity is always a good thing, whether it's in your own investment portfolio, and that's not investment advice, by the way, Kieran, but any sort of approach like that is a good thing as far as not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Let's look at a few other issues now. The opposition leader this morning was on the Seven Network. I'll read to you what he said in relation to a referendum on deporting dual citizens. He said, if we need to amend the Constitution, then I think that's a debate that our country is mature enough to have. And he said, what we're proposing here is a discussion about whether we've got adequate laws. And then, an hour or so later, Michaelia Cash issued a statement to Sky News saying we have no plans to hold a referendum at this stage and would only look to that option as a last resort. What's going on this? Is it a thought bubble, as the Prime Minister suggested?
No, it's not a thought bubble at all. I mean, this is an issue that's been in discussions in political circles since the High Court threw this issue into some doubt about the validity of laws which would strip dual Australian citizens from their Australian citizenship. Now, what we unashamedly on the coalition benches, we unashamedly want to keep Australians safe. And there are people who are dual citizens in this country who have absolutely done the wrong thing by their fellow Australians. They've committed heinous crimes, murder,
So why not
assault.
just firm up the policy? Firm it up, get rid of them if you win.
Well, it's not a matter of firming up the policy, Kieran. The High Court has said that some of these current laws are unconstitutional. So,
but I mean, firm it up and have a referendum. Like Peter Dutton seemed to float the idea, and then it was suggested, knocked on the head by Michaelia Cash within the hour.
Yeah, well, we don't. The coalition doesn't have a policy on holding a referendum on this issue. What we do want to do is look at all options. All options are on the table to try and ensure that we can, wherever possible, we can deport and strip Australian citizens, dual Australian citizens, of their Australian citizenship. If someone commits a heinous act against an Australian or on Australian soil, and they are dual citizens, I think there is a conversation to be had about they've given up their right to hold that citizenship that so many people hold dear and should hold dear. For those of us who were born in Australia, it's something that we take for granted. But for those of us who weren't born in Australia, it is a gift and it's a prized gift, and it's not one that should be abused. Sadly, it is, and we need to be looking at all options to remove these people out of the country and taking that prized gift away from those people that don't deserve it.
Yeah, I don't think many would argue with it. It's just sort of getting a bit of clarity as to how you go about it. But on the CFMEU, the Prime Minister says the knee-jerk is always to say there should be a royal commission. Should the administrator be allowed to do their job with the support of police and the authorities now and just get on with cleaning up that outfit, which is quite clearly in desperate need for an overhaul? Talking to people in business over the last year or so, there has been an improvement, but clearly there is a lot more to be done in relation to that union.
Well, Kieran, I've been calling for the deregistration of the CFMEU for 9 years since I've been in Parliament. I'm a former builder. I've worked on building sites across the country. I've seen the lawlessness that goes on in our construction sites, the bullying, the thuggery, the violence. The Labor Party talk about domestic violence, but they turn a blind eye to the violence that goes on building sites. It's fundamentally wrong. And for, Tony Burke and the Prime Minister to have come out last year and said, we had no idea it was this bad. It's absolutely rubbish. They knew how bad it was and they've done nothing. And worse than that, They scrapped the Australian Building and Construction Commission, which had the teeth to be able to bring the CFMEU to heel, and they scrapped it. Why did they scrap it? They scrapped it because they were looking after their union mates. The Labor Party's received more than $11 million in donations from the CFMEU since Prime Minister Albanese has been the Prime Minister. We think that that is a conflict of interest. He needs to divorce himself from the CFMEU, and he needs to have the intestinal fortitude like Bob Hawke did and deregister the CFMEU.
Okay. Andrew Wallace, I appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Kieran.
We've got budget week. It's going to be a big month ahead with the election too, Andrew. Thank you.
Authorised by Andrew Wallace, LNP, Boccarina, Queensland.